You're listening to the HNC Let's Talk podcast, hosted by Dexter Brooks. Thanks for tuning in to HNC Let's Talk podcast. We partner with subject matter experts to provide candid conversations on health and lifestyle. Here at HNC Let's Talk podcast, mental, physical, spiritual, financial, and health are all connected. This episode of HNC Let's Talk podcast is sponsored by HealthNet Co. Together, we make insurance simple.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dexter Brooks, and I'm your host with HNC Let's Talk podcast. And I have our great co-host here today with us, Demetrius Rayden Johnson. What's up, Demetrius?
Hey, how's it going, Dexter?
Man, it's going. And now the day is Tuesday. I feel like it should be Friday.
I know, yeah. I feel you. I feel the same way, man.
I really do. I don't know why. It's just been one of those when you come off the weekend and your Monday goes by so quickly, and then you realize the next thing is already Tuesday, and then you're like, oh, why is it not Friday?
Why is it not Friday yet? I want more time off. I want more time off already. It's only Tuesday.
It's like, and here's the thing: I don't look for the weekend. I don't like. I'm way beyond that point of living for the weekend. It's just the point is like I don't work Fridays. So that's one thing. I don't work on Fridays. So it's like I work Monday through Saturdays.
That's
I
good.
don't work on Fridays. So what's been going on with you? What's new? What's happening?
Well,
you're here in Denver. You joined us from Tennessee, and
yeah,
been relocated for what, 4 months now?
Yeah, it's been about 4 months now. Just back here visiting in Denver, and yeah, like you said, I've been spending some time in Tennessee, and I like it out there quite a bit. Time in the South has been good. Humidity is good for the skin, I guess.
Dude, trust me, I know about that humidity. I'm from Georgia, and I tell people that I was just telling one of the tenants in my building here, because she had been to Georgia, and I was telling her the best time to go is in the summer because of humidity. It's amazing what it does for your skin.
Oh yeah, it's definitely noticeable. I mean, when I got here to Colorado, I did appreciate the dry climate once I touched down. So I did, because I've gotten used to that over the last 30 years or so, the dry climate and having to put on lotion all the time and all that. But, in Tennessee, the weather is, it's mostly nice. There's a lot more rain out there. Things are a lot more green and lush in the South. And so I really enjoyed that aspect of things. They've got some mountains out there, but they definitely don't compare to what's here in Colorado. But it's definitely different. I can appreciate the South, but I do crave being back here in Colorado from time to time for sure.
Well, you always can just change it around and move back to Denver.
Well, I'm trying to live in both places at one point or another. I don't know. I was thinking about, because it's so cheap to be in Tennessee.
Oh yeah, the cost of living is completely different than here.
Yeah, and that can kind of tie into our conversation today about money and retirement and wealth accumulation and all that, and different strategies. And some of that has to do with regional living. Sometimes when people retire, they want to go someplace that's a bit more tax advantageous, or they want to go to a place that maybe the cost of living is less. And so it's like, hey, I want to make Denver money, but I want to, live like, what that can afford me in Tennessee, So that's the trade-off is, how do you make that happen?
So how do you make that happen? I guess that would be the question. How do you make that happen?
How do you make that happen? I think lately it's become a little bit easier to do that, just with everybody working remotely. It has opened up the doorway to, being in multiple places at once, I guess, to some degree. And, in my career, I guess you'd say, my working years, working in corporate America, I would see that a lot, where people would be what they call snowbirds. And so they would spend 6 months in Florida and 6 months in New York, or, whatever.
Oh,
They would want to get away. Whenever it got cold, they would go to the warmer climate. And so there's benefits to doing that.
Yeah, that was my dream, right when I started into college. You thought about that, how would you going to live your life? You wanted to have 6 months here and 6 months there.
Mm-hmm.
Then as things got changed, I was like, well, actually, I'd rather have like 3 months here, 3 months there.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, and when it comes to retirement, it's one of those things, that flexibility or that freedom of time. You say,
Yes.
hey, well, I want to be in Florida right now, or hey, I want to be in New York right now, or I want to be in Colorado right now. And so, for me, that's kind of I just turned 42, and so I'm starting to, or I'm always thinking about retirement, but now that I'm, pushing into my 40s, I'm like, all right, 60 seems a lot closer. And what am I doing to make sure that I'm creating cash flow that's going to either replace my income or better, ideally better. A lot of people retire better than they live better in retirement than they did when during their working
When
years.
they're
That
working years.
that
Yeah.
is an option.
Yeah.
That can be done.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that's what I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because think about it. If you have no more bills, your house is paid off, you're mainly just paying taxes on your property, paying utilities. You may or may not have a car payment, but now you have all this freedom of time. You got a Social Security check coming in, and hopefully you've got some money from your 401k or IRA or whatever. Maybe you have some life insurance, inheritance money that has been, given to you one way or another, and now you can use that money to help yourself in retirement. And so,
So how do we get there? How do the average person get to that point?
planning and education, nobody plans to fail. When it comes to retirement, nobody wants to fail at retirement. And I guess failing at
Yeah, I
retirement,
never thought about that. Failed at retirement.
yeah, I failed to retire. They talk about failure to
Nobody
launch.
failed at retirement. So,
Yeah, they talk about failure to launch. It's like, well, you didn't make it out of the house. You left the house, way late. But what about failure to retire? Is where you end up maybe working longer than you want to and or need to. And
yes.
so that's something that you generally want to avoid, having the flexibility to say, well, maybe I want to work part-time, maybe I want to work full-time, maybe I want to consult, maybe I want to turn my hobby into an income stream. you know Being able to have the flexibility to do that in your later years, I think has a lot of value.
It's okay to say older years. I mean,
Older years.
it's not politically correct, but I would
your
say it's okay to
your
say
older years. Yeah,
it.
I'm okay with older years. I mean, I'm 42. I'm headed towards my older years, and I value my time a lot more the older that I get, and so
Yes.
that flexibility of time is part of my retirement plan, is to have that flexibility of time.
So when someone started thinking about their retirement and the retirement plan, what are some of the steps that they can take?
Well, first I would recommend, educating yourself to some degree first. Secondly, I would recommend, seeking the advice of someone like a trained professional, someone that knows what they're talking about, a coach, someone that, has some experience with either helping other people become wealthy and retire wealthy, or they themselves are wealthy and you just kind of want to mimic what they've done. And so, oftentimes in the financial advisor space, there's so many people that call themselves financial advisors, but really look into the person that you're dealing with when you're trusting them with your financial future. And so make sure what their areas of expertise are, and
Mhm.
ask them where they're not so strong at. If an advisor tells you I'm strong at everything, I know everything, that's like, all right, well, all right. I get that you think that you know everything, but you got to have some areas that maybe you don't focus on, or
Absolutely.
areas that you don't know some things about. And so, knowing what your advisor specializes in, and what lane that they tend to focus on, is very important, because it may be that you need a team of people. You may need several so-called financial advisors. And so, this is my life insurance guy and my investment guy, and this other guy is my real estate guy and my tax guy. You're not limited to just dealing with one financial professional.
So when you have all these, I guess you say, financial professionals in place, how do they get paid? Because I think that's what people think about right there.
Yeah,
I
they
mean, they
want to
would
know.
love to have somebody to give them all this advice, but they're like, well, how do I pay them?
And that's important to know, because that is a hindrance to a lot of people in seeking financial counsel, is they feel that it's cost prohibitive when it's not. And more often than not, it's not cost prohibitive. Okay, so the insurance guy, he gets paid by the insurance companies. He sells you, recommends life insurance products, health, health insurance products, whatever, the insurance company pays them. Okay. That's generally how insurance agents or brokers are paid.
Right.
With brokers of the investment type, they're paid by their broker dealer firm. They sell you commissioned products, and a portion of those commissions go to the broker dealer firm and to the broker, the individual themselves who sold you the product.
Okay. So that's no money out of the consumer's pocket right there.
Well, there's not money coming out of the consumer's pocket
Directly.
Indirectly, money is coming out, because if you're paying a sales charge for investments when somebody else isn't, then in an indirect way, your returns are being decreased by the amount of sales charge that you're.
But it's no upfront money,
But
basically.
no upfront money that
Okay.
you're not shelling out money to this guy to, buy these stocks for you or whatever, buy
Absolutely.
these funds. You're purchasing through these funds or these investments through his firm. They're placing the trades on the back end on your behalf. They're holding the shares in your custody, basically, and the shares are in your name, and they place those trades, and market goes up, market goes down, and you reap the benefits, or not. If they go down, you lose some money, but they're the broker dealer, and they're the broker dealer firm. The individual is, he's just, he's a broker. And so he's helping to facilitate the purchase and sale of the product and collecting his piece by doing so. Very similar to how, like, maybe a real estate agent would also get paid, or maybe even like a used car salesman would get paid even. So
Yeah, but when you think about the used car salesman, that down payment for that used car, that's yours up front out of pocket.
that's
So
what it amounts to be, pretty much. I mean, that's about. I mean, I don't know how much car salesmen make, but yeah, I would presume that that's about per
right,
car
usually.
is about whatever the down payment is.
Yeah.
It would end up being, and so that's just how it works. Now, with Series 65 folks and investment advisor folks, these folks are paid, a fee based on assets under management. Generally, they have a bit more flexibility in how they're compensated. They could create a financial plan for you and charge you $2,000 for it, and that's the end of that. Or they could charge you annually to manage a portfolio of investment assets for you. And going rate right now is about 1%. And so investment advisors tend to also hold themselves out as wealth management consultants, or they tend to want to handle large pools of money, because the rate at which they're paid on that 1% or 0.5% or 0.75% annually, you got to manage a decent pool of money to make a living off of that as an investment advisor. So, if somebody gives me $50,000 to manage for them, and I'm going to charge them 0.5% annually, that's not a whole lot of money. So
basically, all in all, or when you think about it, 90% of the time is not coming out of your pockets.
90% of the time, you're not cutting a check out of your pocket to pay somebody to manage assets for you. And that is, the common misconception, I think, is they think, well, how much do I have to pay? How much do I, how much is this going
Because
to cost
that's what
me?
we do. The first thing we do is when we do something, we're going to want to
Analyze what's the cost.
What's the cost?
Well, and I think that it's okay to do that. I think that, and we talked about this before, and you don't want to stretch it too far, but yeah, cost is only an issue in the absence of value. So even if there is a cost, you have to look at, well, what am I gaining for what I'm paying
Absolutely.
at the end of the day to determine value and say, well, is this worth doing or not? Do I care that my financial advisor is making $5,000 if I'm making $100,000? No, that's $800,000. But I care, if my advisor makes five.
Mm.
I think he's doing a good job,
Right, as long as he's doing a good
as
job.
long as he's doing a good job. So whatever works for you, I don't think one model is necessarily better than the other. They all exist for their own reasons. When I deal with clients, I like the model that I've set up for my firm, my company, and that, puts me in a position to where I'm able to give investment guidance and education and not charge my clients for them an investment advisory charge, or any brokerage fees or commissions on any products like that. When I deal with life insurance clients, again, I'm paid by the life insurance companies. As kind of a thank you for placing the business with them. As an independent broker, I have my choice of any company to recommend to my clients. And so as a way of them rewarding me, I guess, to some extent. They say, all right, well, thank you for placing this business with us. We're going to give you this X amount of dollars. And so, you know, most cases, you know, it doesn't affect, I won't say most cases, in all cases, it doesn't affect the client because their premium is going to remain the same. So unlike investments, when you charge a commission, how that indirectly affects the rate of return, with life insurance, your premium remains the same,
Hmm,
whether you deal with a broker or not.
that's good to hear.
So it would behoove you to deal with someone that is a broker that, you know, is an insurance specialist rather than doing it on your own when it comes to the life insurance component of your financial plan. And again, you know, in dealing with me, you just so happen to have the benefit of the fact that, you know, I've got 20 years of investment experience to go
Hmm.
along with that. So as we're talking about your 401k plan and your investment portfolio and all that kind of stuff,
Now, I'm going to
I
go
can
back.
do that.
I want to stop right there because now listen to this now. We're recording this, so you're live video recording. You said
Yeah.
20 years of experience.
Yeah.
Now, you guys, when you see this, look at this guy. He's 42. He's got 20 years of experience.
Yeah.
So he walked out. He walked out of school and went right into it.
Yeah. I went right into it. I mean, I think it was weird because I kind of fell into the industry like pretty much right after high school.
Yeah, we talked about that, which was
Yeah.
like, I was
It's
like, dude, just
it's crazy. It's, you know, when I look back and I'm like 42 years old and the only thing that I know how to do has to do with investments and portfolio management and life insurance.
Mhm.
And so, you know, my whole adult life has been revolving around that. And sometimes I take that for granted, but, you know, I'd like to take the experience that I've gained and try to leverage that in such a way that it benefits the communities that I care about the most. And so, you know, once I turned, you know, 39, I hit that 40, and I saw that we talked about this before, midlife crisis coming around the corner there. I think, I don't know if 42 or 40 is midlife crisis time, but
like I
you
told him,
said
the
no.
midlife crisis really doesn't hit
Yeah.
until you hit 50.
Yeah, that's what you said. So I'm gonna take your word for it. So I'm preparing for midlife crisis, we'll say that. And so, you know, I'm like, all right, I gotta go buy a new car, and I'm thinking about go buying a few things, and you know, and I'm reevaluating my financial plan. You know, and it's just something that subconsciously is just in the back of my mind all the time is, you know, what's going on with my financial plan? You know, am I on track? And if I'm not on track, what do I need to do to get back on track?
Yeah, but isn't that something that we do all the time? We need to do every once a year. We need to reevaluate our
You
financials.
have to do it at least once a year. I would recommend for people that are not already wealthy or people that don't have a solid financial plan in place or are not actively working with a financial advisor that they do, you know, an evaluation of their plan maybe semi-annually every 6 months. Because if you if you make that commitment to yourself that, hey, I'm going to get my finances in order and I'm going to create a pathway to wealth, or I'm at least interested in doing that, then I think that your focus and your actions need to be in alignment with what you're saying. And so you need to spend the time up front to create a good financial foundation for yourself. And then after that, every year, you know, check up every year. You know, hey, how's it going? When I talk to my clients, I normally, I normally every year take my clients out. We go out to dinner. That's what we do because I want to see how they're doing. It's a casual experience, you know, when I'm
Hmm.
dealing with my clients. My clients end up being like my friends. And so, you
Well,
know,
that's the thing. That's the thing about clients. You need to be so close to them that you know when something's wrong, even
you
if
know,
they're not speaking it.
exactly. And you want them to feel comfortable
Yes.
telling you when there's a life changing situation that comes about.
Yes.
Because me as their confidant or whatever, you know, I need to make sure that I'm looking out for their best interest. You know, hey, you guys, you know, Joe and Mary are having a rough time. They might be having a divorce coming up, you know. What kind of conversations do we need to have? You know, and that kind of stuff. You know, you gotta life changes, life
Yeah,
happens,
it does.
and
I mean,
it happens frequently, it happens daily. So
it really does. I mean, I look at it this way because I tell people that you should basically go through the process of evaluating your finances once a year. And I
Yeah.
say you should go through the process evaluating your health every 4 months.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good time to do it. Your health is so important. Chances are before you die, you will become disabled
Oh,
to
yes.
some extent. Most people don't just die all of a sudden. The fact of the matter is that the vast majority of people don't just die suddenly. They deteriorate and they
Hmm.
get less healthy. And so at one point or another, you know, conversation about disability insurance. We talked about this, earlier
Oh,
today.
yes. I'm a big proponent of disability insurance. I tell everybody the same thing. If you're working through corporate America, first thing you want to do is jump on the disability plan.
Get the disability insurance. Make sure that you have it through the employer. You can also have supplemental disability insurance that you can purchase on your own,
Oh, correct.
and that can help fill the gap. Because my understanding is, and I don't sell a lot of disability insurance, but my understanding is that normally through the employer, it's about a 60% replacement of your working benefits or so. And depending on who's paying the premium, whether that's the employee or the employer, there could be those benefits for disability could be taxed. And so, having supplemental disability insurance on your own, going out there and talking to someone, I think could be beneficial because, if you got injured, you have to ask yourself, could you live on 60% of your income? Is that going to be enough?
And then you have to think about I can tell people you have to think about it's like when they look at the PPI on the disability side, they basically go back and look at so many years of how much your income,
The
how
people,
much, how much you earned,
right,
okay, for so many years. And then they decide on how much they're going to pay you per month that
right,
out of that 60%.
right,
But then the other piece of it is you have to think about if you end up being permanently disabled,
right.
you have to go get Social Security disability.
Mhm.
That if you apply for Social Security disability, which is very hard to obtain, they're very strict. It could be years
Yeah.
before you even receive it. And if you do get approved, it's 5 months after the approval date that you see the first check.
Well, and you bring up a great point, because just as we talked about in the last podcast, it's either you have a plan or there's a plan for
For
you.
you, yes.
So you got to decide what plan you want to be subject to. Do
Oh,
you want to be
yes.
subject to your own plan that you've crafted to take care of yourself as you've gotten older, or do you want to rely on, the plan that has been put in place by various legislators? And do we know what that's going to look like in 20 or 30 years?
Oh, yes.
And so, it's important to have a plan. Um, again, it's also important to find the right advisor, find the right coach, because you talk to the wrong person and they may not have knowledge of what you need. They might not know that you need something.
Oh, yes.
And so that's not necessarily their fault per se, but it's important that you talk to somebody that has experience enough to know what you need and to anticipate your needs before you need them. And that's when you're dealing with someone that knows what they're talking about and that's good at what they're doing. And because, it's been my experience that people next to their family, money is the thing that they are most guarded about and that they are most um I don't know, emotionally attached to. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, dude, I can agree with that. But like it's just like I say, it's more important if you're out there, you're listening to this podcast, and you're thinking like, well, I don't earn that much money every year. You earn. I'm going to say this: you earn enough to basically invest in disability insurance.
Oh yeah, disability insurance is very reasonably priced. It's very, I mean, I don't know. I think that, you know, again, and I will say this probably every podcast, I don't take on any clients and talk to them about investments if they are not properly covered. If they don't have proper insurance in place, whether life insurance, disability, long-term care, they've got to have certain pieces in place for me to even talk to them about investments. Because even though, I no longer have Series 65 and I no longer act in the capacity of an investment advisor, and I am licensed as a life insurance agent or producer or whatever in the state of Colorado. And, with that, I'm held to a fiduciary standard on the life insurance things. But just as a personal thing, I have a sense of responsibility when I deal with my
Oh,
clients, to the
absolutely.
extent it's like, I'm not going to leave you hanging, by just showing you a piece of what you need. So, you got to make sure you have all your bases covered. Life insurance is not as exciting as investments, but, um, you know, it is what it is. To me, life insurance is exciting, because when I talk to people about the living benefits of life insurance, that's what gets people excited about life insurance anyway, is the living benefits.
And
What
then,
what can you do with this policy while I'm alive? And there's a lot that you can do. And
oh,
so
yes.
those are the fun conversations that I like to have people when it comes to life insurance and creating trusts and wills. And I'm not an attorney, so I generally tend to punt that off to one of my attorney connections. But um, you know, crafting people's wealth, like future, is like something that I take a lot of pleasure in. I enjoy doing that. People say, oh, this is what I want my retirement to look like. I'm like, all right, here, let me show you how easily we can put this together in such a way that you will have exactly what you want during retirement, if not better.
And it's never too late to start thinking about your retirement, everybody. I tell you that right now. Even if you went to the point that you've started your retirement and all of a sudden you had to jump into it and utilize it, start it again.
Yeah.
Don't just give up on it.
Don't give up on it. I mean, your financial plan is a living, breathing thing.
Oh, yes.
It's something, it's not static. It's not something that you just write down on a piece of paper and stick it in a closet somewhere and then just hope that it comes true. It's not like a wish. A financial plan is not a wish. It's you don't blow out candles. There's a process to it, and there's levels to it, and you have to make sure that you stick to the plan and that you adjust the plan as time goes on. Otherwise, it's just a piece of paper. It's just a wish. People wish to be wealthy all the time. It's a plan takes action.
And that's something we ought to talk about sometime, because I'm one of the type of person, I don't think about wealth. I just think about happiness.
I think about happiness. Well, yeah, and that's from a salesperson standpoint, and I'll be perfectly honest. Most good salespeople are good at tapping into the emotion of their clients and their customers. And when you're able to associate an emotion to a financial decision, clients are more likely to pull the trigger on, closing the deal or doing the
Hmm.
business, right? And so I'll let you know up front. Yeah, I want to get people thinking about life insurance. I want them to become emotionally invested in life insurance, the idea of life insurance and what it can do for them and their family, so far as creating wealth and creating a system where they're not dependent on a bank or dependent on loans or dependent on credit, or subject to this, predatory economy. Helping people to craft a financial future that looks like that, is, something that I take a lot of pride in, and my team takes a lot of pride in.
So it's just like, if you're able to look at this recording, this video, there's a piece of art that's on my office wall. It's an apple that's dropping into the water, and I'm going to point it because my best brother did this for me about 6 years ago now. And what it represents to me is just that idea or investment is just a drop in the bucket. Just get it started. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And he knows who he is because I know how much he loves money. So that's what that represents. It's just the apple. Just think about it. Just start it. Just begin it. Don't hesitate to take an opportunity to invest in, whether stocks or bonds, life insurance, disability insurance, but make sure you start something.
Make sure you start something. Invest in your financial future. Make a time commitment to do that. Some of the best investments that you can make that are profitable involve how you spend your time, how you invest your time. How do you, what are you focused on? How much of your day are you focused on your goals? And we talked about during one of these previous podcasts about, harvesting too early, rewarding oneself too early.
Oh, yes.
And people talk about we only live once, and they're very much in this cycle of constantly rewarding themselves for small accomplishments. Meanwhile, the long-term goal is escaping them because they haven't let their seeds grow to the level that they need to grow, or they haven't let the fruit ripen to the point to where it's ripe to pick and sweet to eat. They're out there, eating the seeds, just as soon as that banana turns yellow, they're eating it, or they're eating it when they're green and they're still on the bunch. And it's like, no, you got to wait a little bit longer, keep feeding it, let it get a little bit bigger, a little bit more miracle grow on it. And then harvest it, when you're 60, 65 years old. The harvest will be very, very, very sweet if you have a disciplined approach to your financial planning and the seeds that you sow throughout your working years.
All right. So, Demetrius, what would you like to leave with our guest today, to our audience?
Well, I just like to leave the audience with, one, I'm always, going to refer back to the secure savings program that I'm working on. I want people to get involved and be aware of that. Please feel free to search that up for Colorado Secure Savings Program. We're working on implementing that here, hopefully sometime this year, having to, do with small business retirement planning for the employees and things. So I want people to look into that. And I also want people to kind of expand their mind when it comes to what retirement planning looks like, or what that feels like for them. Because, with time, me being a believer in the fact that time is your most valuable asset, the flexibility of time, the ability to do what you want with your time is huge with me. And when it comes to, like, why am I going to work every day? Why am I making this check and paying all these bills? Like, what, for what purpose? To what end? I think that, I want people to start focusing on, hey, how can I pinch some money away so that I don't have to do this anymore if I don't want to? So where I don't have to work, how do I replace my income? I think when it comes to retirement, have people to think about how to facilitate income replacement. How do you make that happen? And so, until our next podcast, be thinking about maybe some ways in which people can do that. Real estate, stock market, life insurance, there's a number of ways that it can be done. But just to, be thinking about it ahead of time, 20 years ahead of time, not when you're at, 65's, doorstep and you're like, oh, how do I plan for retirement? Think about it now.
Absolutely. All right, Demetrius. I want to thank you again for joining us, Demetrius, at HNC Let's Talk podcast, and I want to thank all our listeners that are in North America, Europe, and Asia. So we're like really expanding rapidly,
We're
which is
growing. That's awesome.
we're
I'm happy to
growing.
see that.
We're growing. And until our next podcast, which hopefully will be soon, everyone be well and be safe.